Hi everyone, it's Daniel from Homegrown Australia. Out in the garden, getting a little bit inspired with the warmer weather now, and it's also the long weekend here, the Cup weekend, first weekend in November, and it's when I usually get my tomatoes into the garden beds. So got my seedlings ready to go. But I thought I'd do a little video on irrigation because I'm having to do some running repairs and I'm running a little bit more polypipe around the place. So I thought I'd share with you some of the journey that I've been through, some of the things I've learned, and what you can do in your own garden beds. If you've got raised garden beds, keeping the water up and mulching the beds is really important. So I've got some sugarcane mulch ready to go on the beds as I'm planting them out. This lettuce crop here I'll probably cover over with some shade cloth for the summer. But in terms of the irrigation, I've been using this polypipe system, and what I've got here is a 13mm polypipe, and connected to it I've got a 6mm irrigation line. And so if I come in close on this irrigation line here, you'll see it has little holes in it. And so this is quite an economical way of watering the garden. Now, this has served me well, but it does have a problem, and I'm going to share that with you. Basically, the way that I connect these up, and I think this part's really good, so is I run a bit of pipe up underneath, behind the bed here, from bed to bed. I use an inline tap, which allows me to turn this bed off if I don't want it, or if I've got a leak or something, I can just turn it off and keep the rest of the beds running. And I'm typically been running 3 or 4 of these little drip lines. Now the good thing about these drip lines is they're quite easy to run, they're quite easy to move out the way. You can stake them into the ground here. You just use a bit of polypipe at the end, fold them over on itself to stop them, and then you can take that off, open this out, and then you can flush the lines. So that's one really good thing about these. The problem with them is that after a couple of years, 2 to 4 years, I'm finding they tend to actually snap off. So here's a bed here. Let's zoom out, you can see my bed here, and just prepared this for the tomatoes. And you can see here it snapped off on the outside barb, and this one it snapped off right up on the line. This one so far survived. So I'm finding that system is not that robust. So what I've decided to do instead is take advantage of these 13mm drip lines that I've been using around my fruit trees. And you can see here it's the same system. I've still got my inline tap, but instead, and I'll show you an actual one in a second, I'm using a T-join. So there's a break here between the black polypipe with a T-join going into the 13mm drip line, and I'm basically running at the moment 2 lines, and I'm making a circuit. So there's an elbow join, and then back into the polypipe here. So I've got a continuous circle there. So this system will be a lot more robust. So I've had this kind of polypipe underneath my fruit trees probably for about 8 years, under the citrus trees. They keep getting buried in mulch and all sorts of things, and they're still going strong without any issue. And I'll just show you quickly. I've just thrown this around here for the purpose of demonstrating. But here's the polypipe here. Sorry, the drip line, the 13mm drip line. And basically under the fruit trees, just another option, is basically I run them around. I take the drip line of the tree, which is the outer branches of the tree, a perpendicular line back to the ground, or parallel line with the tree trunk, down to the ground, and that's where I stick the polypipe, because this is where the root systems of this tree would be taking the water from. Although this being a cherry tree, it goes out a bit further usually. But anyway, so that's the idea. So what else I can share with you? So I'm in the process of extending my garden beds here and the polypipe. So you can see I've just got a line running across. I've dug a little trench. And if I come down, I'm in the process of about assembling this across this bed here. Sorry about the shadows, but if I get close, you can see I've taken a T-join there, a little bit of polypipe, and then an elbow join to run up on the inside of the wall. So I'll push this polypipe on the other side of this wall here, and then I'm extending this polypipe, and then that'll go through to this other bed. Now, one more thing I'll share with this over here. So because this alternative system, I cannot flush it. So it's they're actually capped in the 13mm polypipe. They're not just folded over. But what I can do is I've got this little device here, and I can use this. So wherever I have my end line, so here's my end line, and then I can basically fold this over, thread this on here, and then I'll fold that over and then tuck it back into there, and that will seal that end line, but it allows me to open it up again for flushing. So they're a handy little gadget as well. I hope that made sense. And then other than that, I thought I'd just share with you some of the pieces. So we talked about the inline taps, allow me to shut off each bed individually. So it's worth spending a little bit of extra money to get those. Being able to shut the beds off individually if you have a leak or you haven't got anything planted in there. No point watering the bed, or if it doesn't need extra water. We've got the elbow joins. I particularly like this one. There's some others that are more rounded. I like the square one because I can sit it on something and really push hard. Really push hard to get that pipe on without having to put the pipe in hot water. So they've got quite long piece here too, which allows you to get a clamp on. And so they're really good. You can get 4-way ones, and you can get the T-joins, which we talked about. So I use a lot of these T-joins. I use a lot of the elbows, just working my way around. Separately from that, we've also got the little clamps. So if I'm putting polypipe in the ground, I'm always using the clamps. If I've got it above ground, I don't necessarily worry about the clamps. I'll put them on if I get a bit of a leak. But in the ground, I definitely want to use them. The other thing is you can get metal ones of these. So if I'm putting it around the fruit trees, I'm typically using the metal ones because I'm going to bury them, and they're going to be there for a long time. A couple of brands in this we get from places like Bunnings or Mitre 10 or whatever. So there's the Pope brand, and these are these little connectors that I use on the 6mm drip lines. They're from Holman. And we talked about the punch tool. So they come in a few different shapes and sizes, but effectively they've got that little hole on the end, and basically all you're doing is you're putting it up into this line and forcing it into the pipe, and then that then allows you to put those drip take-off adapters, drip line take-off adapters into the polypipe, into the 13mm polypipe. Yeah, so hope that was of some sort of use for you. So we've got the two different systems. We've got the 6mm drip line, and we've got the 13mm drip line. If you found that a little bit useful, yeah, give us a like, and feel free to subscribe, and I'll try and provide more content as I work my way through my tasks. Thanks a lot. Bye.